Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Wetzel. First, I would like to thank Mr. Wetzel for asking me to speak with you this evening. We're going to take a look at culturally responsive instruction and behavior support practices. First, we're going to take a look at culturally responsive instruction and behavior support practices that are happening in our district in USD 114. And then we're going to take a look at 10 different methods that I've found for culturally responsive instruction and behavior support practices through research, and then hopefully we can apply those in our district and find things that work for us. First, culturally responsive instruction methods used in USD 114 currently. These are just some things that I noticed that are going on. First, all of our teachers have classrooms that are very inviting to every child. You can walk through each classroom and see that our teachers genuinely care about our kids and they're creating an environment for them to thrive. Two, our students are able to collaborate and work together in groups on different projects. We've got some project-based learning going on. Students are able to work together and learn from each other and learn together. Three, our staff has clear and high expectations for all students. I think this is a great thing. I think that our staff understands the potential that each of our kids has, and that is why we have these high expectations for our kids, and we push them to be their best. Four, our staff does a really good job of understanding student differences that may affect their learning and then design lessons to work on those differences to help each child individually improve. Now we're going to take a look at some behavior support practices that are going on in our district. We follow the PBIS behavior expectations. We are teaching, modeling, and practicing and rewarding these expectations. An example of a reward would be in our primary school would be our cyclone bucks. Students can work hard on their behavior, and if a teacher or staff member notices that, wow, these students or this class is doing a really good job behaving, they can award them a cyclone buck. And our students save up their cyclone bucks monthly, and then they are able to go to the cyclone store where people in our community have donated items that our students can, quote, use their cyclone bucks for to shop and buy something they like. Now, if we have students who are struggling with their behavior or things like that, our PLC, our SIT, and counselors and therapists refer students who would benefit from further methods or further interventions, that is. Our faculty that are directly involved are the PLC, the SIT team, our counselors, therapists, and administrators. I think all of our students are involved to an extent initially, but many students who need those further interventions because of behavioral issues are referred when necessary. Now we're going to take a look at 10 culturally responsive instruction methods that I've found through research. One, create a classroom culture that is welcoming for all learners or a family-like atmosphere. I touched on that earlier. I feel like our staff does a really good job of that. Two, use students' background knowledge for instruction. Very important. Our staff does a pretty good job of knowing each of our students and where they come from, and then using that knowledge to create lessons and be able to instruct our students. Three, present content in many different forms. Four, use instructional materials that relate to a variety of cultures. I think that's very important. Five, having high expectations for everyone. Again, I touched on that one earlier. I think our staff does a really good job of that. Culturally responsive instruction methods continued. We're moving on to number 6. Effective communication with all learners. I think this is super important. I feel like great and healthy communication can help stop a lot of issues before they may happen. And I think it's very effective to have that communication with our students. 7, curriculum that is culturally diverse. 8, Consider how student differences affect learning and design lessons that address those differences. I think this is very important, and I think our staff does a pretty good job of this as well. Need to understand what differences a student may be having, and then address that and really attack that and help those students get over that hump, so to speak. 9, teachers must be aware of their own biases and how they can affect learning. Very important. 10, communicate and work effectively with parents, guardians on a regular basis. Just like communication earlier with all of our learners, I also think it is super important for us as a staff to work together with our parents and community. Now we're moving on to behavior support practices. We're going to take a look at 10 that I think would benefit our district. Number 1, database decision making. Very important to have accurate data. 2, increasing culturally responsive practices. 3, critically evaluating beliefs on African American students through professional development to create culturally competent behavior management practices. 4, address the need for social skill instruction. Very important to help students avoid behavior issues. 5, replacing zero tolerance practices with a tiered approach to discipline. Continuing behavior support practices. 6, create a student-centered classroom. I think this is very important, and I think our staff does a really good job of that. 7, use interventions to improve student behaviors. 8, teach respect to model caring so that relationships are promoted. I think creating healthy relationships with students is very important. Teaching students to respect everyone and care about everyone and have that great relationship with everyone, I think that will go a long way to keeping bad behavior out of our buildings. 9, increase parental involvement and communication. Just like mentioned earlier, parental involvement and communication is very important. I think our staff does a really good job of that. We need to continue that. And then 10, improve teacher practices in all ways. Some further questions to consider. Which students would benefit most from culturally responsive instruction and behavior support practices? Personally, I believe that all of our students have the ability to benefit from these practices in some capacity. Next, which of these practices would be most effective and easiest to implement? Just a couple that kind of came to mind. Creating a family-like atmosphere and a welcoming classroom culture. I think those are great things to start with. I think creating that atmosphere in our classroom, that's what our kids they're kind of seeking that. So I think that's something that would be easy and effective. 2, teaching respect to model caring that promotes healthy relationships. I think both of these things that I've mentioned are spot on. I think they're easy to do and effective when used properly. Promoting healthy relationships in our building from staff all the way down to students is one of the top things you can do, in my opinion. Here, a look at my references. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope that there are a few things that I mentioned today that we could implement in our buildings in our district. I appreciate your time. Take care.